Hey there, welcome back to another video. This time it is a review of the 1985 science fiction horror film Creature. Now, Creature is also known as Titan Find. I personally prefer Creature, even though it is 100% intended to be as close to Alien as it possibly can be. It's one word, just like Alien. They couldn't just call it Alien, so they're like, what's the closest thing we can come up with? Creature. Um, Now, this film to me gets unfairly lumped in with these lazy, lame retreads or rip-offs of Alien. This is not a lazy film by any means. This is not a movie that started out from its genesis or its inception as just being solely a ripoff of Alien. I think that's honestly selling the film way too short. And let's not act like Alien is 100% original either. See, this is the thing that bugs me. It's when it comes to criticisms of Creature or Leviathan or films that deal with blue collar crew who face off against an alien or a monster, they seem to always go back to Alien and act like it's the originator of this particular genre. It isn't. A lot of these critics lack context. As much as I love Alien, I'm not going to sit here and say that it's 100% unique or original. It has some really 100% unique and original visuals and stuff like that, but the overall story and some of the aspects are not. It's got elements of It, Terror from Beyond Space, and Planet of the Vampires or Mario Bava. So it's one of those movies that is an absolute classic, and it's definitely a much better film than Creature. But Creature, even if you don't like the film, even if it's not a movie that you personally care for, I don't think that it's fair to say it sucks or it's not any good because it's just a ripoff of Alien. I think that's just a little bit too unfair for me personally. That being said, it does not do itself any favors with its title, Creature, and the fact that the main monster looks very similar to a xenomorph. And there are some other elements in terms of the production design that you can kind of look towards Alien as an inspiration. But that's just, I mean, that's nothing to condemn a film for. Being inspired by another movie that came before your production is not a bad thing and should not be considered a bad thing. To me, a film like Star Crystal is a much bigger example of a blatant ripoff of Alien than Creature, because Creature at least does some different sort of new things with the formula. Star Crystal is essentially Alien, but with like everything else that you don't want. I mean, I don't really want to start on a tirade on Star Crystal because I'll be here forever, and then it won't even be a video about Creature anymore. It'll be a rant on Star Crystal. But anyway, I do truly feel this film gets a bum rap, and it's one of those movies that I honestly feel is a lot better than its reputation suggests. I felt that way ever since I saw it on VHS, and the more times I view it, the more things about it that I appreciate, and the more research that I do, I appreciate it even more. Now, Creature is directed by William Malone, who before this he did a film called Scared to Death, where he showed that he definitely had the chops to direct and managed to do a fairly solid job despite a low budget. He gets the job to do Creature, and originally he starts out with a much lower budget, but Transworld Entertainment saw the dailies and they were impressed, so they gave the film more money, and that was something that really helped this movie. Despite the fact that it's a film that didn't really have that big of a theatrical release and essentially was released direct to video, it had a pretty high budget for a film like that. $4 million doesn't seem like a whole lot, but for a lower budgeted film for Transworld Entertainment, that's a big budget for that particular studio. So, and it's a huge budget for William Malone. That's more money than he's ever seen when it comes to a film production. So, this is an example of a director who is given a small amount of funds to work with at the start, but once he gets more, really is able to go all out with the visuals, with the effects, and really takes the film to another level. I don't think this film would be as good as it is without the extra windfall or money for the film production, because the extra funds help legitimize this movie as more than just a low budget affair. And it's also very helpful to see it in its original intended aspect ratio. I mean, for this film wound up in the public domain, and because of that, has had countless releases by budget DVD companies that are not in the right aspect ratio, poor picture quality, and don't really do the cinematography or the direction justice. Thankfully, William Malone himself released the film to fans and to other people through, I believe, his website at one point. But then there were some rights issues, and he was only able to sell a limited amount of copies. But thankfully, because of his efforts, there is a widescreen transfer that exists of the film, and this actually is the widescreen transfer. I don't know what company this is. I don't even think this is even a studio. It doesn't even. It's clearly a DVD-R, but this is actually the widescreen print, and it's not that bad. It looks pretty good. Definitely the best that I've seen the film look, and it gave me a newfound appreciation for the movie because I was really able to marvel at the sets and at the visual effects, which were honestly really impressive for a film like this. Now, it features a script by William Malone and Alan Reed, and overall, I think the script is fairly good. Well, yes, there are some similarities to Alien. It does have differences. Like, for instance, the creature uses these, not necessarily spiders, but might as well be call them brain bugs. Uses these brain bugs to reanimate dead bodies and use them as vessels to trick people, to bring people to it for food, and so on and so forth. So it's kind of, in a way, a alien meets zombie plot, and I think that's pretty cool. I like that. Zombies and aliens combined. That's a nice combination. And there are some other aspects to this script that I do feel get overlooked when it comes to the film standing out from the rest of the pack when it comes to these alien clones, so to speak. One of them is the ending. It's a different kind of ending, and I like it. I like it because it's a different kind of ending. It's not mean-spirited or downbeat in any way, but it's different because there's a sense of humor behind it. The lead character isn't the one that fires the final shot, and it just makes it stand out in a way that is genuinely unique and not necessarily out of this world, but definitely something that you didn't see very often with this particular genre of film. The screenplay really excels when it comes to the gruesome or the gory or the creepier aspects of the film. Doesn't have the best dialogue, doesn't have the best pacing in terms of the overall plot and how things unravel. Uh, that being said, it's not a bad screenplay by any means. The characters are fairly well written. At least the two main characters, and Mike Davison and Beth Sladen. Um, the other characters have their moments as well, but those are the two that are definitely given the best treatment when it comes to the screenplay. But like most films, it's the actors that really bring the script to life, and this is no exception. It has a pretty solid cast. Stan Ivar plays the lead, Captain Mike Davison. I really liked him. I thought he did a really good job in this role. It was nice to see another everyman kind of character like this, similar to the lead in Scared to Death, which there actually is a connection between the lead in Scared to Death and Creature, because I think at one point he was considered to be the lead, but something didn't work out, so he suggested Stan Ivar, and Stan Ivar came on board. Wendy Schaal, I felt, was a good love interest and companion for Stan Ivar. I thought they had some good chemistry with one another. Lyman Ward, he had his moments as well. Klaus Kinski was crazy and psycho, which is the norm for Klaus Kinski, but he definitely added some extra legitimacy to the production because of his involvement. And I thought he did a good job with his performance, despite the fact that he was only there for a week and didn't have that many scenes. He still made an impact and made the best of what he had. I have to give William Malone an immense amount of credit, as well as everyone else involved with this production, for dealing with Klaus Kinski and his crazy ass. Because Klaus Kinski, for those of you who are not familiar with Klaus Kinski, do some research. Look up the documentary that Werner Herzog did about Klaus Kinski. Look up some of the footage of him acting crazy on the set. Klaus Kinski, to me, was a legitimate either sociopath or psychopath who wound up with a film career. Like he is actually certified nuts. Like this isn't an act. Like he is legitimately a crazy person. And he drove William Malone nuts. And I have just, when you have a difficult actor like that, that's a problem. But when you're a second time director and you have an actor like Klaus Kinski, who's not only difficult, but he's fucking crazy, that makes your job even more difficult. And I mean, and Klaus was sprung on William Malone. This character wasn't in the script. This was just a character that's written last minute because Transworld Entertainment was like, we got Klaus Kinski. And William Malone's like, we have Klaus? Okay. All right. And it's just a testament to William Malone's genuine talent to be thrown a curveball like that and still hit a home run. But yeah, Klaus is nuts. He's also shady as hell and got involved in actual legitimate instances of sexual harassment because there's this makeup gal. She did the makeup for the actors in the film, and she has a pretty hefty size of hefty rack. And Klaus Kinski just decides, oh, I'm Klaus Kinski, so I'm just gonna grab her tits. And of course, she wasn't a fan of that. The actress who played the character Bryce, Diane Salinger, she felt very uncomfortable around Klaus. He would harass her, and she thought that if she dressed butch, that he wouldn't bother her. But nope, didn't stop Klaus and his randy ass. Yeah, it's that's why I'm saying it's not only William Malone who deserves kudos for dealing with Klaus Kinski, it's everyone else, from the cast to the crew. They all get equal amounts of kudos for dealing with the just absolute batshit craziness that is Klaus Kinski. Now, the other cast members, there really aren't that many. They're there, but mainly it's a film that consists of Stan Ivar, Wendy Schaal, um, Klaus Kinski, Diane Salinger. I will say this: there are a couple characters that I didn't really think, a couple actors that I didn't really think did that great of a job. Robert Jaffe as John Fennel, and I'm trying who was the other Marie Lauren as Susan Delambre. I thought their performances were rather wooden, and I didn't really think they did that great of a job. Also, there's this. Speaking of those characters, they're a part of this really bizarre random sex scene that I don't really understand why is there, other than hey, here's some tits, and to establish that those two are an item. Marie Lauren is a pretty sight though. She shows up in a sequence at one point in this movie that is straight out of Life Force. She's butt naked, walking around the surface of the planet, seducing her boyfriend, and he actually falls for it because I guess space pussy sounds like the best thing ever to this guy, despite the fact that it's outside on a planet that is not that hospitable. I mean, it's one of those planets where you need to be wearing a helmet, otherwise you're gonna suffocate. But no, he goes out there anyway because the pull of the space pussy is so strong. But yeah, decent cast. But really, where this film shines is with its atmosphere, its mood, its production and art design, its visual effects, and some of the gore. It definitely is one of those movies where that is the strongest parts. Those are the strongest parts of the film. And I think, yeah, for a pretty decent low budget film, there are some really solid instances of gore. There's a head explosion that's really well done. There are some other bits of gore like a decapitation. There's this stuff with the zombie characters. There's one scene where a character gets his face ripped off. That's handled really well by the effects artists. There is also, like I said, so it's just a lot of great mood and atmosphere. The surface of the planet is always dark and shadowy, and there's lightning all over the place, and it's smoky, and they shot it in an abandoned warehouse, and they were doing everything for real in terms of creating the gritty look of the air. And because of the fact that they were doing all this for real, it was an absolute nightmare to shoot on the set. Like, it was hard to breathe, and it was just a absolute just mess because it was just dirty and nasty and just hard on your health, but it looked great. It did. It legitimately looked great. These are the kind of things that you do if you don't have as big of a budget as some of the other bigger budgeted films. You cut corners like this. Despite the fact that it had a budget of ultimately around 4 million. I think a good chunk of that probably was with the effects and some of the other visuals and stuff like that, not stuff like production and art design. That being said, they did a good job creating a look of the ships and making things look futuristic, and there's some nice model work for the spaceships that are featured in the film. They didn't just use stock footage like other lower budgeted Roger Corman films, for instance. I liked The Terror Within, but it uses some stock footage in some places, if I remember correctly, like a lot of Roger Corman productions do. Creature doesn't do that. I liked that the monster was not necessarily, oh, it's just another xenomorph. Even though it has a similar appearance, there is enough differences with the monster in terms of how it operates that it isn't just the same thing as the xenomorphs. There's no chest bursters, there's no anything like that. And another aspect of the film's production I definitely want to point out that's worth mentioning is the score, especially the main theme. I like the score. I actually think it's catchy at times. Definitely a little underrated because I don't even know if it's even available anywhere. But I just definitely wanted to give some props to Thomas Chase and Steve Rucker for the score for the film. Made certain sequences even more creepy and even more atmospheric, and also added some extra thrills to particular sequences. I also want to mention something that I forgot to mention when I was talking about the screenplay. I want to mention how this film has a lot of meta stuff going on in it. There is a reference to Howard Hawks' Thing from Another World, and they actually try to stop the creature the same way that the Thing from Another World was defeated in that film with the electricity. I thought that was a really inspired choice and really showed that William Malone and the other writer really knew their history, and they understood that this is a film that's roots are firmly in these alien movies like Alien or The Thing from Another World. So they wanted to do homages and tributes, and the way that they did it actually was clever and wasn't just, oh, we're just going to do it without mentioning where it comes from. They actually name drop Thing from Another World, which I thought was that was a fun thing. I also really like the meta stuff where William Malone references his previous film. The female lead in the film, played by Wendy Schaal, Beth, she she likes to read horror books, and the book that she's brought along with her on this journey is a novelization of Scared to Death. So I thought it was pretty cool. I always think that's a fun thing when directors make callbacks to their previous work and create their own sort of universe within their productions. Really does make their work stand out. And they're not the only. I mean, this isn't technically a new thing. I mean, Alfred Hitchcock would do a cameo in nearly every film that he was in, and there would be other movies before Creature and definitely since that have had the same kind of references. But it was just another thing that was like, oh, that's pretty cool. That's a fun little addition to the story. Now, I also want to mention the cinematography by Harry Matthias because just like a lot of the other cast and crew, he was a trooper working on that set, which was might as well have been a coal mine for all I know. And he was just working himself ragged. William Malone mentions a story in the little 15-minute featurette that's on the outer print DVD that he released, where he was talking about how this cinematographer at one point was so exhausted that he fell asleep standing up on set. So definitely gotta mention his work, because this man worked himself so ragged he fell asleep on set. Um, and yeah, he definitely put his effort into it, and it shows. Like, there's some really great looking shots in this, especially for a film that's so dark. And it's also a movie where, like I said, with the widescreen release, you can actually see the full scope and size of the cinematography. So you can really appreciate it a lot more than you might have been able to when you saw the full screen version on VHS. The editing by Betty Jane Cohen, it's it's serviceable. It's nothing spectacular, but it definitely gets the job done. And it has a running time of about 97 minutes, and it kind of starts off a bit slow, but once it gets going and you get to the craziness, the carnage, things really do pick up. Although it doesn't start off like super slow, because there's a sequence early on that's honestly uh, uh, a big bang. It just boom. It starts off, and then you're just like, whoa, did not know it was gonna go there. In that particular sequence, I want to throw a shout out to the to the guy who played the commander of the spaceship that gets kamikazed early on in the movie. It's not gonna win any Oscars, this line delivery, but I loved it because it was so genuine. He sees this transmission of this creepy looking astronaut who has a skull for a head, barreling towards his space station, and he reacts naturally. He's just like, "Holy shit!" And then boom. I really like that that spontaneity, and it's just the realism. It is. It's total. It's just a it's a 100% real reaction to something like that. And it was refreshing to see, instead of like, oh, it doesn't say anything, or there's no words that are said, or if the words are said, it's something that doesn't come across very natural. No, he was saying what most of us would say in that situation. Holy shit. But yeah, I don't really know what else to say about Creature. Except I do recommend you give it a watch sometime. It is also on Tubi. I believe it's a widescreen version. So definitely check that out if the film interests you in any way, or you like the trailer, or the concept sounds intriguing to you. Don't expect a masterpiece. It definitely is a lower budgeted affair. There are some slow parts. Some of the acting isn't the best in the world. Yes, it is going to remind you of Alien at some points, but I don't necessarily think that's a bad thing. And if you like these type of movies, I think there is a decent amount of things here that you can enjoy, from some nice bits of gore to some creepy sequences and some nice mood and atmosphere, to Klaus Kinski and his crazy ass. Um, but yeah, that's my review of Creature. I hope you enjoyed it, and as always, I'll see you later. See ya.